of United. My name is Karen Knapp, President, CEO, United Way of St. Lucie County. United Way is in the middle of their School Supplies for Students campaign, and we appreciate all the help we've received so far. Many of the schools, if not all of the schools, have received the supplies, but we're still collecting more. This year, we plan to serve at least 5,000 children, if not more, providing them with the supplies they need to begin the school year. And we want to thank everyone who's participated, and we're so happy you joined us. Our representatives here today are from Hibiscus Children's Center. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of school supplies for students, I'm sure some of your kids receive them as well. Many of our agencies do. Let's talk about Hibiscus Children's Center and your mission.
Our mission has been for 30 years, and this is what we're celebrating right now. 30 years where a lady by the name of LaVon Tilton had a dream. Where do children go who have no place to go? So we take care of neglected, abused, and abandoned children. And the issues that we face today are different than we did 30 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago. And one of the big issues that obviously when children are in trouble, it's usually from their parents, and it's usually tied to two things: domestic violence and sexual abuse. And again, we've been really strong in developing our mental health collaborative in our area, and we were so fortunate to have someone like Caroline develop her team, and she's probably better off than I am to tell you that story.
Caroline, you want to talk about your mental health program?
Well, our mental health programs, they originated out of the shelter. Basically, our programs came because we saw a need that the children that were abused, abandoned, neglected needed mental health services to treat the trauma symptoms that they were displaying. So we have a sexual abuse treatment program where we provide specialized treatment to victims of sexual abuse and their families. The families can be a non-offending caregiver that would also be part of the therapeutic service that we provide. We provide the counseling in home, in schools, or even in the office. We also have an infant mental health program where we see kids 0 to 5 and their caregiver. It doesn't have to be a parent, it could also be a foster parent or a relative caregiver, and help with parenting, discipline, bonding, things like that, behavior modification.
How does a person find out about your program, and what do they need, or who do they have to be to qualify?
Well, basically, the best way is to go on the website. You can go to hibiscuschildrencenter.org. We have a referral link on there, so they can even call the office. They can call our community outreach number, and they can talk to a mental health coordinator, and we can take the referral from there and basically get an intake assessment within 2 days.
So where are the counselors housed, and how do they interact with their clients?
All of our counselors are housed in our Fort Pierce location. That's our community outreach facility there. So at first the clients come in with their families for an intake interview, and then from there we can see them at their home or at the school, wherever it needs to be. You know, we treat them in their environment, so they can also be seen in the office as well.
Do you receive clients from both Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie?
We do. The majority of our clients and families come from St. Lucie County.
Right, right. Let's talk about the fee. Is there a cost to the counseling?
Well, most of our clients have Medicaid insurance, but if they don't have insurance or they have a commercial insurance that we don't take, then we have grants. We have the Victims of Crime grant that we're able to fund services, provide therapy for, also case management. Family therapy is included in that grant. We also have grants with the victims' compensation, also through the state. So those who qualify are usually victims of domestic violence, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. So it really aligns with our mission statement that we provide services for those children that have been abused.
Every program, every agency has their success stories. Let's talk about a few of yours.
Wow, a lot come to mind, and you know, we do see a lot of kids that come into our care. They might come into the shelter or the village, and one child that comes into mind She came in, she had been abused, she was no longer with her family, lost their rights, and what we did was provide treatment, and then also she got adopted. So, but when she was adopted, she went out into the community, she left the residential facility, and we followed her into her adopted family's home, and we provided counseling to help with that transition. So the adoption is finalized, and the family's happy, and she's made progress. She no longer has the trauma symptoms. So, it's been a success to us when we see those kids that come into the shelter, the village, they come into dependency, and the success story is that they get adopted or they get reunited with their family, and they're no longer, in the system, and they're doing well.
And you have fundraisers coming up. We always have to think about, that part of the program, and that is to raise the funds for.
Right.
Let's talk about your fundraisers.
Our fundraisers they're in every county, so they're part of the development team, and they do a lot of different events, and I'm sure Michael could probably speak more to that because he's always at those events, and we're kind of the backup for that. But
And again, that's correct. It's a question that, for us to remain solvent in the four-county area, it takes us about $7.5 million to sustain. We get of which about $2.5 million has to come through grants, fundraising events, donations, whatever possible revenue stream we can get through. The big events period and the fundraising periods are usually the fourth quarter of the calendar year and the first quarter of the calendar year. Again, that's when most of the people are here with season. A lot of types of events are here. A lot of it has to do with collaborations and with other agencies such as yourselves. You guys have been a terrific supporter of Hibiscus Children's Center. We could not sustain anything without the collaborative measures and the partnerships. There's so many in this area. I mean, we were together with the 211 activity, and I thought that was just great. I believe there was 200 nonprofits alone in St. Lucie County, and we were at one time, I remember, as the third fastest growing county in the country, which is really dynamic. And so when people come here, one of the first questions they ask is, okay, what can I do to help? And of course, first in usually wins, and we tell our story a little bit about, and this is why this community has embraced organizations such as Hibiscus, United Way, the school systems, and so forth, because it is a collaborative measure, and we work well together, and the end result is the beneficiary of the children. We've had over the last 30 years over 250,000 safe nights for children that without our organization would be on the streets. And I always say behind every number there's a child, and behind every child there's a story. And I won't do this to you or the audience, but I always say within about 2 minutes I can make you cry, And most of the time, as we were talking about, it is happy tears, because people will come back afterwards and tell us their story that Hibiscus Children's Center has saved my life. We were going through the wrong area. I was abused in certain ways or neglected. And because of the different programs and the different agencies, and again, this community, which I think is unique anywhere in the United States, this community should be proud of all the things that this area does. And again, I want to just sit there and thank you and the United Way for everything you guys do. You're a great partner and a great leader.
Well, it's a privilege for us to support such a wonderful agency, and an agency that's doing so much for the children and families of our community. You have many business partners, and I know you want to talk a little bit about those partnerships.
Well, the partnerships and you're right, we do have, because a lot of times people will sit there and say, how can I help? And a lot of times it's not necessarily just people can write a check. It's can they come in and maybe mentor with the children? Can I read to the little kids? We have a program in Vero Beach called Career Pathways, which is also another grant, which is internships for some of the kids, because a lot of times when you think of foster care or even group residential care, you think of the little ones. Many of the children that are in the village are 13 to 17 years old, and they're the forgotten ones. And in many cases, they can be in 30, 40 different foster homes. So we have a program called Career Pathways, which helps them to get back on track. They do internships with a lot of the businesses, as well as we do have a GED teacher and program on staff, because when they're moved from place and displaced from home to home to different cares, their educational activity suffers as well. And so we try to create whatever is normalcy. We bring in organizations that sit there and say, okay, pretty soon you're going to be on your own. Why it's necessary for you to have renter's insurance, how to interview, how to fry an egg, how to iron a shirt. Now, I realize not today, maybe not a lot of shirts look better when they're not ironed because that's kind of what it's going to be. But these are some of the things that most of us were taught and when we were children, and we have to understand that these children did not have that opportunity. So whatever we can do to bring normalcy, whatever that may be determined, is something to give these opportunities so these children can become productive members of society.
That's wonderful. It really is. So helpful. And it is helpful. You know, when you think about helping a child, you're helping the whole community.
Yes, you are.
You know, the whole Treasure Coast.
Right.
Volunteers are so important. Let's talk about where volunteers fit into your agency.
We have currently about 300 volunteers, and they fit in everywhere. I mean, again, we have this summer when the children were out of school, we want to keep them busy, but they've had like different field trips and so forth. And again, the kids have, just like at home, you have to make your bed, do your homework, do your chores, don't fight with the other kids, do different types of things, and they're rewarded just as we were when we were children. The volunteers come from all different walks of life. They want to be mentor. They may have something that they're good with, art therapy that we work with. I mean, that's a program that I think has really kind of developed the creativity. And it's also a place where, again, I think Caroline can do a much better job. They can get away from maybe some of the trauma that they've ensued. Because in many cases, I think up in the village, I know approximately 90% of the kids that come in are on psychotropic medication. So we have to deal with things to get them back into what is good. In many cases, they're overdiagnosed. And we have doctors, we have a full-time doctor, nurses, and staff. And again, when fortunately, we're up to 8 or 9, I think, physical licensed therapists now, where when I first came here, we had 1. So again, this is how the program has grown.
But our volunteers can also be interns. We do get a lot of interns from the college, the Indian River State College, that come to our outreach program in Fort Pierce, and they want to help out with, you know, just doing some case management. And even we would direct them up to the village or the shelter to help out with, you know, doing groups or, you know, paperwork or just helping with the kids, crisis counseling, things like that.
So once again, how can someone find, or where do they go to find out about how they can help?
Well, again, I think the website is the best way to access information
Correct.
about volunteering. There's an application process. There's contact numbers to call and, you know, speak to someone that can walk you through that process.
And
There's also a donate key.
Yeah,
I knew we were going to do that.
See, there you go.
And all fundraisers
Yes.
now, there's a donation key. And it does take a lot of donations and support to be successful in our community. So I want to thank you for joining us as we talk to Hibiscus, and we'll be right back in a moment.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles.
Everybody bring it in.
I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out.
How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork?
I help keep kids in school,
Good.
and that's the name of the game.
My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
Hi, welcome back to Live United. Our guest is Kathy Mooring from Graceway Village here in St. Lucie County.
Morning.
Welcome, Kathy. Let's talk about why Graceway Village was formed and some of the founders possibly, there's people responsible for it, and why it was formed.
Well, Graceway Village came into being from, I've got to give full credit to Indian River Presbyterian Church. Integral people from that church had the facility that used to be First Presbyterian Church, but they had merged with Indian River Presbyterian Church. And through a lot of meetings and contemplations, they decided they really wanted to be able to serve the community in an area of need that was unduplicated, that had not been met yet. And so they narrowed it down to 2 main areas, and then one was clothing for children in a nice capacity where they could come in a respectful atmosphere and actually shop themselves and get good condition quality clothing for children, and the other was a food kitchen. And what we knew, there's certainly those are around, and there's wonderful ones. They sought out a day that did not have a hot meal anywhere in St. Lucie County available for those in need, and that's the day that they settled on for that.
So basic needs it was very important.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
It certainly is. You do many things at Graceway, and we're going to get into that, but you have a new program we're going to start out talking about.
Thank you. I am so excited about it. The first two programs I talked about, as far as clothing and food, they meet immediate needs, which you have to address that before you can really deal with any other way of helping individuals. These workshops have just opened up a variety of topics for individuals to learn and grow in life resources. And they're put on together through nonprofits in our areas and a few businesses. So it's bringing the community of nonprofits who are like-minded in helping those in need in our community together. And they're hosting the workshops at Graceway Village, such as today at 11 o'clock. We have one today. It's being hosted by the Hands. Nope, I'm sorry, that was last week.
You can talk about that too.
That's true. There's an excellent one from Hands. This week is from the food bank. And it's all about insurance, how to handle insurance, how to make the phone calls and see which doctors take which insurance and the processes with it, the authorizations, the paperwork, you name it. It's so confusing and it changes constantly. So that's what today's workshop's about. And how beneficial would that be for individuals? We have them coming up from hospice on living wills. We have them from, offhand, a lot of parenting ones, time management, discipline, nutrition, just on and on. Right now I have about 10 nonprofits signed up to do it, and we're booked through the middle of November already
great.
with workshops.
So do you take the individuals who take advantage of your hot meals and the clothing to, come to the classes and be helped through the counseling to improve
Absolutely.
their lives, which is so important. I mean, it takes more
is.
than just food and, as you said, more than just basic needs, but sometimes it takes a little instructions and a little hand up in other areas. So.
It certainly does. They are our primary focus. We promote them continuously on Saturday and Wednesday. We're consistently telling people about it. I'm hoping that they will go. But we're also advertising it throughout the community because a lot of the topics are good for senior citizen communities. Anyone is welcome to come. It's free for everybody. And it's really addressing topics that we all can't sit there and say we know everything about. We have them at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock every Wednesday, and what we've done to accommodate even more is we've increased Matthew's Cafe's hours. We provide a free lunch now every Wednesday from 12 to 1.
Oh, that's good.
So they can come to a workshop, stay and have a lunch, or they can come early for lunch and then stay for the repeat workshop.
So how do you get the word out about that?
Well, Facebook is a really big, Facebook, as well as many of the distribution lists I'm on with other nonprofits and like a referring agency and volunteers, those mailing lists too. We send them out and they send it out from that point on.
Wonderful. Well, it's back to school time. So you know what we're going to talk about next, Hope's
Yes.
Closet, and how you support the families and the children who are returning to school.
Absolutely. Today is the busiest day of the year. We had our first clients arrive at 9 o'clock by taxi, and that always touches me, that they valued it so highly and it's so needed that they will invest in a taxi in order to get there. Last week we gave out 1,400 items of clothing to our children. We had 87 children we served last week. We're expecting well over 100 children today, well over, and we'll probably touch the 2,000 garment.
So what types of articles of clothing do they look for, and what do you need? What's your biggest need there?
That's a great question. Thank you. This time of year, they're looking for school-appropriate clothing that meet the dress code requirements for their school and uniforms. So we have uniforms. They're each allowed one uniform per child, and then they can pick 2 other shirts and 2 pairs of pants. We give them also clean underwear, new underwear, and new socks.
New, that's right.
New. Very important in those 2 areas. That's where our investment is in the new undergarments. That's a good way of saying it. We also have accessories that they can take, and we have shoes when they're available in that size. Shoes are in short supply. They get pretty worn out by the kids, and so they're not easy to hand down. And that's just a reality. And larger size clothing, teenage clothing, particularly the larger sizes, and boy clothing. We're short on boy clothing always. I think they're just so hard on their clothes.
So if someone had some of these items, where would they go to donate them?
We have a large depository in front our front door. They can come any day, the time that's convenient for them, and drop it off. And that is 1780 Hartman Road in Fort Pierce. It's just north of Okeechobee Boulevard.
And once again, what are the hours of Hope's Closet?
It's every Wednesday from 10 until 5, but we do take our last client at 4:15.
Another program you run is the Getting Ahead. You partner with many other nonprofits, and this is one program that United Way was funding.
Absolutely.
Tell us how you fit into that program.
We're very excited to be a part of this program. Getting Ahead is for individuals who are stuck in poverty. They desire to get out. They've tried many things and they're not able to. This class is meant for them. It's a 16-session course where they take a very hard look at the community they live in, as well as the resources that surround them and their thought processes. And they address each one with a focus of improvement and growth so they can bring it home to their family and hopefully with assistance climb out.
Yeah, you guys do so much for people in need in our community. You're sort of a new executive director. So why don't you tell me a little bit about something you've learned just by coming into the nonprofit world and about people in general. I think people that come in from the outside, they bring in the all their experiences, but the nonprofit world is so different than the average day-to-day. You're probably seeing how much people are being held behind the scenes where we don't always see that every day.
That's very well put. I get emotional just even being asked that because it has changed me. I've been here since the 1st of October in this position, and my travels take me in areas I've never been before and place me in front of individuals, not so much for me to talk but to listen. And a day doesn't go by that I don't get 2 or 3 phone calls seeking assistance that we can't help. The needs are far greater than I imagined. We are so blessed in my family beyond what I even realized. The community of nonprofits, when putting these workshops together, I was able to go and visit with so many. We have great resources here in St. Lucie County, and the heart of the nonprofits, they're not competitive with each other, they're very supportive with each other. We're really fortunate with that reality. There's the same general need that everyone has. Funding is the most difficult area. And we support each other on that too, which I've just really grown to appreciate, that camaraderie, a spirit, the same like-mindedness.
And we're going to just mosey on into Matthew's Cafe, another wonderful program that you run and the people of Graceway Village run. You have a very small staff. And
Yes.
I know that you depend a lot on volunteers.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Matthew's Cafe and the volunteers.
Thank you. Matthew's Cafe is every Sunday night at Graceway Village from 5 to 6 p.m. We serve at least 100, if not 125 every week. Last year, I think it was a little over 5,200 that we served. And now that we've opened on Wednesdays, that number is just going to be increasing more, and we're thankful for that. The free lunch is open to anybody, whether they do a workshop or not. There's always a line before the doors open, the mixture that's in that line really reflects the county that we live in reality. And the varying ways that the needs, some are just absolutely desperate, whereas others, it allows them just to be able to have a tank of gas if they can just even eat out once a week. Volunteers are integral for it. We have one paid staff member for Matthews. We couldn't do it without the volunteers in any of our programs at all. And they come with a heart to serve and to have relationships with the individuals, which I think is very important too.
What would you say is your greatest resource at Graceway Village?
Our greatest resource are our volunteers. Absolutely. They really are great. I mean, there's not one that I've met that comes for selfish reasons. Even the kids who come for community service hours, very quickly they see the effect of what they're doing, and it becomes more than something that they have to do for school.
And it takes resources, it takes monetary resources
Yes,
as well. Do you have a fundraiser coming up, or do you have an annual fundraiser?
We have for Hope's Closet, we have butterfly kisses every spring. It's a wonderful father-daughter dance. We have another one that's in planning, but I don't really want to talk about it quite yet because it's just at the beginning stages. But we also have we have a golf tournament coming up in June of 2016 where we're going to be the beneficiaries of. But I'm going to wait until that announcement as far as the organization that's going to be hosting it for us. But we're excited about that.
Okay, that's great. So if you could say one thing that we haven't touched on, what would that be about Graceway Village?
First of all, that we exist. It amazes me how many people still have not heard about Graceway Village. Often they will have heard about Hope's Closet or Matthew's Cafe. They do not know that they're even related, let alone blood brothers and sisters with the same agency of Graceway Village. So that's the first thing, is that we exist, and we exist with a high priority of meeting the needs in any capacity that we can, because we truly care about our community.
And do you have a website?
We do. It's www.gracewayvillage.com.
So we want to make sure that people know that Graceway Village exists and that you have wonderful programs that are helping people in need, and you have a program that is not only helping with the basic needs, but it's also helping people get out of poverty and get out of the situation they're in.
Yes,
so you are really working to improve lives, and United Way is so pleased to support such a wonderful program.
We appreciate
and
it.
we hope that you and our viewing audience would like to help as well. And if you didn't get the information across the bottom of the screen, you can call the United Way at 464-5300. Thank you all for participating, and thank you all for helping.